Victoria is here. Well, Maddie, I need you to come back on so that you can introduce yourself. Kim is here. Kim, Victoria, hi, welcome. We love to see your beautiful faces on screen. Maddie, you want to tell folks who you are and about Sage U, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Maddie Thompson. I work at Sage and I help with Sage U, our new online hub for virtual resources and events. And so we are really excited to partner with Pat for today's program. Second episode in a wonderful series that I will let Pat introduce. But I'll be behind the scenes helping with any of the recording, the chat, things like that. So feel free to tag me in the chat if you need anything, and I will make sure that our hosts can unmute and come off camera in just one moment. And I will make sure that everyone is spotlighted who will be on today's panel. So thank you for being here.
Great. Now I just got looks like
Evening,
in the
Pat.
chat.
Pat, I'm so sorry. Whenever I press my camera, it's saying that the host stopped the video.
Let's see. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, it seems like Victoria has the same issue.
All right.
There's Your Highness.
Okay, there you go now. Yeah,
Great.
And here's Victoria. All right. Welcome, welcome.
thank you.
This is the second podcast in a series that Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective has joined cahoots with Sage U. I'm Pat Martin, and I will be your host tonight. And I say no one can tell your story better than you. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and tell folks a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll get the program going. Let's Dreddy, I say ladies first. So Sandra, you want to start?
Thank you. Sure. Good evening, everybody. Hi to my fellow panelists. It's really nice to be here with you all. My name is Sandra Perez. I go by Sandra or Sandy. She, her, age pronouns. I would say I am a longtime organizer, really have worked at the intersection of community, culture, art. I've worked in the private sector as well. And most recently stepped down as executive director for New York City Pride, where I was the first female and I believe the first Latina to do so. And, born and raised in the Bronx. So from the boogie down, that's where I'm from. And just happy to be here.
All right. Kim?
Hi, good evening. Um, no, I'll do that in another time. But good evening. My name is Kim Watson. Benjamin. Some folk who have been updated. You can refer me also as Dr. Benjamin Watson Benjamin, and a little about, there's so much about me that I think that as we go along with the conversation, we will understand who I am. I am very direct. I am very passive aggressive when it comes to community. So when we talk about community, I have been in the medical field for about 15 years, about 15 to 20 years. I've been doing this work for over 35 years. And I think that one of my biggest things that I have for myself that I like to be used and not utilized. I'd rather be used than to be utilized. Reason for that, I always look at when I'm working, my paycheck, I work for community. My paycheck is to pay my bills and stuff like that, but I definitely work for community. So anytime you see me on the ground, it is not only it's for community, um, and not only to get a check.
Right. Victoria, hi.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always great to be in your company. Victoria Kirby York. I am the Director of Public Policy and Programs at the National Black Justice Collective, also known as NBJC. And I've been organizing for a little over 25 years. First, starting out in public health. My first campaign was working to stop indoor smoking, which began in Florida, fighting big tobacco. And now, as you go across the country, little kids don't have to get secondhand smoke just because their parents decide to take them to a restaurant. So that was kind of what first got me really interested in public policy. Of course, as I got older and became an adult, there were a lot of other issues that became really important. Uh, Of course, and especially being Black and LGBTQ plus and same gender loving. And so I created groundbreaking research to help support HBCUs in creating a more LGBTQ inclusive environment. And I've been working with NBJC and at NBJC to help create better federal public policy and also support our state change makers as they work hard to create change and better environments for members of our community right where they live. So more to talk about as we continue our conversation, but I'm incredibly grateful to have been invited to be able to have this conversation with all of you.
Thank you. All right, bro. Come on, Dreddy.
Okay, here I am. Yes, I want to make sure I was on. Good evening. Greetings, everybody. I am Elda Antonieta Etienne, known as Dreddy. In the Hispanic community, La Trenza, which is Dreddy. I'm an Afro-Caribe Latina who's been in this field for about 37, 38 years. From the belly of the beast, meaning from prison to freedom ground. I have done so much that I like others have said they're gonna, as we go on, we're gonna expound more. I've worked not only locally but also nationally and internationally. So my work is as advocate for women's rights. That is my main focus and the work that I do. And now my new focus, even though I am supposed to be retired, is HIV and STI criminalization, the issues that are being pushed towards our people of color during this time. Thank you.
Great. Well, folks, as you see, we have a panel filled with activists and folks who know what it's like to be out there working for the community. This is an in-depth conversation on dealing with and living authentically as lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, and queer. We're glad you're joining us as we discuss the ways hateful language impacts a community's quality of life. And we will look at exposing the myths while sharing the truth. Let's start with the fact of living authentically as LGBTQ in this world. It's estimated that around 7 to 10% of the world's adult population identifies as LGBTQ. This translates to hundreds of millions of people globally. My question to you, panel, is can our community and or the positive contributions we have made in politics, theater, science, and more, can they ever be erased?
No.
Hell no.
No.
As I came up in my gut, I was like, nah.
And I take my collar off. Watch it now.
Right?
There you go.
Fireworks, race. What?
We
Nah.
our history cannot be erased. I know he's trying, but it cannot be erased because we, especially New York, is a melting pot, and that's definite. Okay, so how is he going to erase? Is he going to erase the stoplights? Is he going to erase the peanut butter that everybody loves to have? And I could go on and on and on. He can't erase us. Okay, they should have left us where we were in the get go, but they decided no. So now they got to deal with it, erase themselves, cancel themselves, but they can't erase nor cancel us.
All right, all right. I second that emotion. When you hear common myths or misconceptions about the LGBTQ plus community, which ones stand out to you as most damaging and why?
Well, I think I'm just going to jump in to say I think right now what we're seeing is classic, classic gaslighting in terms of the way the trans community is being portrayed and vilified, um, and by extension, the old tropes are coming out. We're pedophiles. We're really just looking to groom children. Um, when nothing could be farther from the truth statistically, right? So from where I see right now, there's the threat is both external but also internal, that we don't all splinter up into factions, which is a classic strategy, divide and conquer. And this is not the time to do any of those things. And I know we have our own reckoning to do internally, but you know, deal with the enemy outside the door right now.
Right. Anybody else want to jump in?
I think that when we hear about myths when it comes in the community, how my response will really of a mixed reflection is myths come from a fear of lack of understanding.
Mhm.
Because many people repeat stereotypes or myths because they never had the opportunity to learn the truth about the
Mhm.
LGBT community, and specifically the trans community,
Mhm.
because of cultural and religious
Mhm.
systems have taught them to see queerness and transness as wrong or unnatural. I must say that being in the LGBT community is not a choice, and it's just a phrase trying to invalidate people's lived experience. So my thoughts are always no one else has the right to define or dismiss someone's identity.
Mhm.
As well, they're not just words, they translate into policies, family rejection, bullying, discrimination in healthcare,
Mhm.
and I think about the very real toll that this takes on people's mental health and safety. So the truth and the power of that for every
Mhm.
myth is a reality, sorry, grounded in history, science, and lived experience. For example, as I would say again, queer and trans people have existed in every culture across time.
Right.
So we can't be canceled.
Yes, Dr. Watson.
What I would add, so last year, NBJC commissioned alongside the Black CEOs of some of the national LGBTQ organizations a study called Black Facts. And one of the myths so in the context of last year's elections, the focus was polling and gathering
Mhm.
data from focus groups and surveys from Black voters.
Mhm.
And some of it was looking at voter attitudes, but this other component was looking at Black perception, beliefs, and areas that folks would be willing to throw down in support of Black LGBTQ plus and same gender loving people and families. One of the perceptions that we know is a myth that came up in this data is this idea that because white people are also identify as LGBTQ plus, that Black, queer, and trans and gender expansive people had this proximity to whiteness that must give us some level. I don't know why the balloons came up. That must give us some
Happy
level.
anniversary.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you. Um, that is very true. That it would give us some level of proximity to whiteness that would give us some level of protection that other Black people don't have. When in fact it is quite the opposite, right? That because we are Black and because we have these gender and sexual minority identities, that we experience more hardship, more discrimination, more family isolation, more factors that drive down the quality of our health, as well as the amount that we're able to demand in the economy, right? And so there's this myth that in some ways has created its own additional level of stigma above even stigma related to religious beliefs in the Black community when it comes to um, whether someone decides to show up to fight alongside our issues or not. One of the other myths that we've been working hard to combat in our Stop HIV Together campaign is the continuing stigma that follows someone who's living with HIV or AIDS, or just talking about it in general. And this outdated concept that heterosexual Black women are somehow increasing in transmission rates of brothers on the down low, when the data that we have for today, not from the 90s, but from today, shows that the vast majority of those transmissions are coming from heterosexual contact with Black men who also identify as heterosexual, right? And so being able to combat that myth allows us to open up how we talk about HIV and AIDS, not to minimize the impact on our community. We still want to talk about that and center our community as being disproportionately impacted. But Black cisgender heterosexual, well, Black women, period, cisgender and transgender, have, incredibly disproportionately high transmission rates. The only way to bust down that stigma is for us to begin to change how we talk about the virus, how we talk about transmission, and ensuring that our doctors are, especially Black doctors, are talking to every single patient that comes through the door about PrEP and other kinds of medications that folks can take to help prevent transmission going in either direction.
All right.
Two
Thank
myths. There are
you.
plenty more, but those are two that I'm like,
Yeah.
let's knock those down in the Black
Yeah,
community.
I know there are a lot of them out there, and we just have to keep talking.
Mhm.
Next question. What cultural, historical, or political forces do you think have shaped these negative misconceptions of our community? What negative forces are behind this? Political, history? Where does this come from?
How far back do you want to go?
How far back can you take us?
Mhm. Right. I think, well, I'll take us in a different direction. But, I do think that the reason we're in this moment is because our communities are approaching their majorities. Um, and this is, the attempt to bring everything back to the good old days for some. That's my read on it. I also think that, this is, we're clearly under the government of a fascist government right now.
Mhm.
And that's the truth. And when you try to rewrite history, um, and really corrupt different, segments of the government, we're in dire times. But in terms of how we approach it, I do think it's really about us focusing in on how we keep each other strong.
Ashe.
Absolutely.
Ashe.
Stronger together.
And
Yeah.
when I look back at history, or
Mhm.
I don't try to do what happened back in history. I learn from the mistakes of history, of the past. We need to do that. But the one thing that we have right now, the biggest problem, is the unification of us as LGBTQ+1 and allies, etc. You know, at one time, you know, since I'm an old dog here, you know, I started out in this field of HIV when it was only the white gay male. And as we progressed along, and the lesbians started to come out, and we became like, oh my God, nannies and all those different clubs we used to go to in the village. We became a little bit more powerful. And even our brothers, our gay brothers, had a problem with the presence of the lesbians because we weren't sitting back and being quiet. We were owning clubs, and we were becoming CEOs of 500 Fortune companies, etc. You know, we were becoming more empowered. We were becoming more visible. Because when I was younger, there was no way I was going to walk down the street and hold nobody's hand. There was no way that I was even going to speak to a trans individual, you know, because at that time they weren't called like trans individuals. They were transsexuals and all these other horrible names, just like what they used to call me, lesbo and bulldagger and all that kind of stuff. So we have
So
to
you're
learn.
talking about cultural. It's
Yes, we have to learn from our mistakes. Not only our culture, because I transcend cultural lines. I'm born in one country, raised in a couple others, and here in America. So I got a little bit of everything thrown together. You know? And the thing about it is that I've seen and I've worked with many populations for years. Unifications, we're just not unified. And if we can get to that point where we can unify a little bit more and understand and respect each other and honestly support each other, we would just go a long way. That the government wouldn't be able to do nothing with us.
That's absolutely true.
Instead of sharing a pie, you want the whole pie. Give me a piece of pie. Just saying.
So, next.
My answer to the question dovetails with what Elder Etienne is saying. I think whether it's political or cultural, sometimes it just comes down to silence being our biggest foe. Like for me, the thing out of everything that happened in last year's election, the thing that weighs the heaviest over me is the silence of people who I thought would have been like ride or die when them ads dropped. Was, you know, I just kept like, when's the ad buy gonna happen where we get a full-throated response? And there was just silence, right? And
Yes.
so for me, in my opinion, the message that it sent, some people are like, well, no, she's just trying to get people. And this is not just about Vice President Harris. This is about the broader, because you pick a major national organization from a broader progressive movement space, and in my opinion, not enough full-throated pushback or use of resources to push back, right? When you look at the people who sat out, yes, I think there was a percentage of that had to do with Gaza and Middle East. But I think you send a message when there's silence, when you say, these are the people that we support, this is a big part of our base. And when they have $250 million worth of ads being pummeled on TVs across the country, bad-mouthing immigrants, bad-mouthing trans people, bad-mouthing the idea that because you're detained or in prison, you deserve good health care. When that is met with silence, it says you're not really about that life.
Come on now.
You say you care, but when push comes to shove, you're going to back up and retreat. And if you're going to retreat when it comes to these people who show up at 92 and 93% for you, what are you going to do for me?
All right.
I think silence is what creates shame. Silence is what creates stigma. And those are the things that start to peel away at progress. We have to tell our stories, a different S, right? And I know like there's a good and bad about the story sharing piece, right? Because it's trauma. It's like bringing things up. I get that. Everybody, it ain't for everybody. But the power of our stories allows us to bring people further along with us who may not has started out with us. That's what happened in the 90s when folks went back into their states and local communities and start inviting people in to say, look, I'm gay. You with me, right? You know, I was a teenager, right? Y'all were like grown, letting folks know. But that changed things because then people were like, wait a minute, you talk about my sister. You talk about my daughter. It's not going down like that. It changes things. And we have to get back to being bold about that when it comes to equity, when it comes to diversity and inclusion efforts. We can't let that narrative ride either.
So you're
I am
saying
so
our voices.
I am so happy that you spoke. You said like equity, and you talk about, and I hear about unification and stuff like that. And those things sometimes, at times, grinds my gears. So when we talk about the narrative of myths and how we are dealing with community, the the colonialism and the Western imperialism and political systems of oppression have taught community to be against each other. So everything that the political climate has put forward, what the community is doing is okay, let me grab a piece. I don't want to be that one because remember, this political climate started with okay, well let's erase the majority of the minority of the individuals who are actually in these different boxes. Let's get rid of them first. Remember, they
Mhm.
tried to get rid of the trans first. Then they went to mental health. Then they went to the elder people. So actually, when we talk about this, we talk about um, authority. When we talk about
Mhm.
authorization and conversations with the government and stuff like that, and when they come and say that this is what's going to happen, our same community, let's be clear and transparent, our same community sided with whatever the political authorization was going on and said, let's be side and let's we do this as well. So let's not forget that a lot of people hide behind a curtain and hide behind a keyboard. And they will meet up at events and smile in your face and say, hi, you're my sister, you're my brother, you're my this, you're my sibling. But behind your back, when it comes to funding or anything else, they erase you like the political government have erased us. Did you hear me?
Yep.
Our community erased you like the political climate has erased us. So they forget about the us
Mhm.
and they erase you. They forget about singular. They forget about the plural of the us and erase the singular. And then
Mhm.
want to come up with an excuse.
Mhm.
Oh, we are together. We're not
We're not
together.
together. Nope.
How are we going to learn togetherness or unify if we are on a thin line like crabs in a bucket trying to fight for another dollar and would not give
Mhm.
a pennies and we don't even do pennies no more. So let's keep it real. Let's really get really authentic and transparent here. If we're going to really talk to our community about the things that they are doing wrong. My 2 cents.
Preach the sermon.
That
There's
was a whole
Yeah.
50 cents, sister. That wasn't 2 cents. All right. Tell them
yeah,
about it. Okay.
those things definitely happen.
Yeah. Can
No, there ain't no rebuttal to it.
yeah.
Like,
Nope.
And it's
All
been
right.
happening, and we haven't changed it. It's been happening. When
All
I was
right.
in
We
the
got
field,
out. We see.
I was in the
That's why
field.
this conversation needs to happen more and
Yeah,
more.
when I was in the field, Pat
Okay. I
knows.
I, I gotta
I
keep
was
it
here,
moving
there, and
now.
everywhere.
I gotta keep it moving. I'm
Keep it
sorry.
moving. Keep it
But we're
moving.
gonna come back to this one day, okay? Can any one of you share an example of a time you were a victim or experienced a harmful slur and share with us the way that you dealt with it? And the reason why I ask that is because our young folk are under attack and they don't really know how to deal with it. So let's hear how you dealt with it.
I always said that I love the movie Color Purple. because I have been fighting all my life.
Mm.
I've never had a mentor, a gay mentor, a gay father, a gay mother. I've never had that. Nobody had taught me to do makeup, but I'm going to tell you who inspired me. Nobody taught me, but I was inspired by several other people. I must say I had one mentor. I may she rest in peace. That's Daphne Hazel from Planned Parenthood. You know, thank you. Planned, Planned Parenthood. And you know, she taught me the she taught me the ethics and the finesse of a black woman who came from the street and stuff like that. And we related so much. Me and Daphne related so much that she turned into be my mentor, and she actually taught me how to deal with Buddhism and how to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and how to heal and how to realize that it's about me. I'm the moment. What really gets me, and I must say, what gets me is that a lot of individuals in community and outside of community looked at what's real from what's not real. What is their version of what a woman or a man should look like? Who is,
The
and they
biases.
mix identity and they mix sexuality. So
I'm
it's
sorry, Kim. Let's go back to the question. Have
okay.
you ever been discriminated against, and how did you handle it?
Okay, I've been discriminated at a college that I went to sign up for a college. And when I went in and I gave them my ID, they saw Benjamin, Watson Benjamin. They did not see Kim at the bottom. So unfortunately, the person said, "Look at it," and they just assumed that I was trans, and they said, "Watson, so you are a guy." This came from a security guard. And I was like, oh, okay, wait. And I like talk and I went up on the elevator. And while I was going up on the elevator, my mind said, because I wanted to be humble, but my mind said, oh no, hell no. So I pressed the elevator and come back downstairs. And I said, excuse me, what did you say? He said, no, 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 no. I'm not talking to no man. I don't like people like that and stuff like that. I said, are you saying it from the ID or are you looking at me? Do I look like this? He said, "What your ID say this?" I said, "Please look at my ID." But all this time, I scope out where the videos, the cameras were, and had him talking. At that moment, he was discriminating me and did not know that he was discriminating me intentionally. To understand, I said, "Look, my ID said Kim Watson Benjamin." And he argued me to death that my name was Watson and not Kim. He does not have a job right now in that college.
All right. Good for you. Good. Anybody else want to share?
Never. Giving all thanks and praise to the Almighty. I have never experienced that. I've had colleagues and I've had clients and I've had family members, but daughter, have never experienced that. And it's a good thing because I'm a warrior woman. I don't think I would handle that well. Honestly, it depends on the situation, and I know many people have gone through it and have been hurt, and even some have tried to commit suicide. But to God be the glory. I've never experienced that, so I can't expound on that.
All right.
I've had a few different experiences. Some I've handled better than others. Or some moments that I wish I could get back and clock somebody. Let me put it that way. But my Christianity kind of held me back. I was like, oh no, how did I handle that with a smile and keep it moving? But so the instance that just brought up, when we first moved back to DC, I guess 10 years ago, we were looking initially to rent, not to buy a house. But there was a condo. I'd filled out the application, and I think the person who owned it assumed that like me and my wife were like friends or like maybe siblings or something like that trying to live in the place. So they had approved the application. Then I sent an email that said, well, before we finalize this, I need to make sure that my wife has a chance to come see the place. And then this person went from blowing my phone up, trying to secure the deal, right? To crickets. Like absolutely. And we had just dealt with a pretty traumatic experience with my family. And I wasn't in a headspace at that point to file any paperwork with the city or try to fight back against the property owner. We just decided to buy a house and be done with it. We realized it was cheaper in the long run, that the mortgage would be cheaper than what we were about to pay in rent. So, we just made that decision. But I often think about like how I wish I would have handled that situation better. I wish I could, say like Dr. Watson Benjamin did and was just like, and that person don't got a job no more. I wish I could say, and that person got fined X amount of dollars and they know not to. I wish I could say that, but I can't. Now, I will say there was an experience when I was in college where there was a membership organization I sought to be a part of. And I'm pretty sure that my sexual orientation was the most significant barrier there. I was serving on the board of trustees. I was a magna cum laude graduate, this close from SUMA. Like I was like 100th of a point from SUMA, like had done all the things you're supposed to do. And that was a heartbreaking one. Now, I did end up writing letters. I didn't go to the press. I didn't file. I didn't, do that kind of a thing. But I did go through the official organization process to let people know how I felt. And I will say, after that year, there are a lot more openly gay members of that organization.
Fantastic. I want to go back, Victoria,
Yeah.
to the housing situation.
Uh-huh.
Did you just walk away from that deal, or what did you and your wife do? How did you handle that?
Yeah, we just walked away. We, just decided to stop looking to rent and got a real estate agent to start looking at houses. We just completely, I was like, I don't want to deal with that situation again. I don't like just was not something that I was interested in having come up again. And again, it's the DC area, right? So people perceive DC to be this place, right? Like you come to DC and it's magical and it's progressive and nothing bad will ever happen to you again, right?
Get
But
that. If you could do it over again, what would you do? How would you address that agent?
I would have filed a complaint with the local government and also with HUD. I would have filed a complaint, maybe would have considered uh, other kinds of legal action. But I was already in a pretty traumatized place, so
Yeah.
was not really open to putting myself through any other kind of grueling experience like that at the moment. But yeah, I wish I would have filed a complaint with the Office of Human Rights, with the local housing agencies that are responsible for ensuring equal protections in housing. I wish I would have filed that complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Now, I will say this was pre-Bostock decision. This was pre the Biden administration having the guidance that said that sex discrimination was expanded in all these other areas to include LGBTQ plus people. But for most of the local municipalities in this area, there are local versions of those policies that are LGBTQ plus inclusive. So if I could have done it again, I would have followed those processes to make sure that's not done to anybody else.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Is your hand up, Sandra?
Yeah, it is. as Elder said, I've never had a slur directed my way, but for sure I've been confused as a server at galas and cocktail events, or I've been confused for my son's nanny, you know, by
Whoa.
people who are expecting, a Latina to be in some service position. But, I wanted to also just talk about something else, which, I think part of Victoria's story captures is like, it can be death by a million cuts. People aren't as overt, not everyone's overtly, slanderous, like the security guard. A lot of people are very stealth, and we experience that too in the workplace, and I do think it's one of those things that as I've gotten older in the not-for-profit sector, I grew up in this sector, I'm like really clear on calling bull at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people, sometimes you're not going to file a lawsuit, but what you can say is, hey, I'm disturbed by what I see. I'm old enough at this point that I can do those type of things. Or if I see a younger person being mistreated in a certain way, I will tell them, you don't have to tolerate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you how you're going to handle this, or I will show you how it gets handled. And I do think that's our responsibility, because it's not
Absolutely.
always the slur. It's a thousand little things. It's being followed when you're in a store. It's not finding a vacancy, or somebody else suddenly being in front of you in a line. Every day for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Um, is there anything going on at this time that's giving you hope for a future with greater understanding and acceptance for our community? Is there anything that we see that we can look at as being positive? Well, I
I'll go first.
say, go ahead,
I
Sandra.
was just going to say, and I would say it's only been in the last month or so that I feel a shift. I think people are coming out of the shock that we've all been in as things are being dismantled. Um, and I think there's a feeling of determination of locking in now and just saying, oh, all right, this is the way it's going to be, and we're not going to. We need to fight every single step of the way. So, I do see that. I see a lot of younger organizers doing
Hmm.
tremendous work, tremendous work. So, that's where I see the hope. And I also think we need to let them lead.
I
That's
think that
right.
to
So that's what
echo
I want to support.
Sandra, there's so many wins since this political climate. Although there have been a lot of things that have been doing well. When it comes to like funding, I've seen last week that there was such a beautiful win. Transit organizations getting 13 million,
Mhm.
the dollars that they get, and that was such a beautiful thing. One of the things also in the political climate, with the political climate, the city council is still pushing, and they're not. I mean, that is because it's amazing that a couple bills for trans care, health care
Mhm.
last week were passed by the city council. Um, so those are a couple of wins that I have seen, and I have seen a lot of individuals that are mobilizing and organizing as well. That I love that. So that's where I see the togetherness comes in
Mhm.
when the boots are on the ground, getting things done and screaming and shouting because there are worse things that are happening in the entire world than just here. So I love it. I love the mobilization that's going on and
Mhm.
not working in fear, but working to get things done. I've seen more of that and I love it. That's beautiful.
Okay. When we look at these myths that are going on that are hurtful, how do you think that these false narratives, the way that our community is being portrayed, how do you think it has an impact on our the mental health, the ability to earn a living, and overall safety of our community? Do you think they all correlate that there's you're muted, Dreddy?
I said it greatly impacts individuals, the mental health, from the beginning of the pandemic when things got worse and then loss of jobs and then going back and all the stuff that was going on. And then this man that's not my president comes in and fires individuals that have been in a position for 20, 30, 36 years. I have a sister that worked for 36 years, and it's a good thing that day she went and took some money out of her 401k and fixed up her pension, because he was getting ready to slash their 401k and their pension. And it's really bad as a federal employee, that she gave her life basically for it. And then at the end, she's going to be scrambling to do what all of us do, because sometimes federal employees get kind of comfortable. So now she has to deal with going to a pantry, or maybe getting together with some of the other ladies in the community. But the changes have impacted a lot of people through suicide. As an individual that was working with the suicide line here in New York, the amount of young people that say they can't do it, the amount of young people, especially during the pandemic, that were upset that they spent 3 or 4 years studying and then they could not get together for their graduation. I remember that was really impactful because so many young people were very upset. They waited 4 years to graduate and do a prom and the whole nine, they couldn't do it. And the same thing happens today. We're not just dealing with stuff on a more positive level. I feel I don't really take the trains anymore, but we don't even deal with how do you say, empathy, compassion, respect. I rode the train the other day and I was very surprised. I had to get off the train because the man decided that he was going to come on the train and attack another man just for the heck of it. And everybody just sat there, and a couple of people were taking their phones to take pictures. Nobody intervened because they didn't want to get hurt, probably. And then as the next stop, everybody ran off the train. So we don't think about helping the other human being today because it's fear. We're dealing with fear so much. I know for me as a reverend, that's what I am hearing from the people that I do spiritual counseling with. They have a lot of fear, even fear for going on a vacation and if they're going to make it back home safely. And the list goes on. So fear has entered our sphere and has changed our way of being. That is just my opinion. Ashe.
What I have to say is that they want us to be afraid. So we need to stop walking in a spirit of fear and walk in a spirit of caution. Because when we are afraid and we go indoors, they win. But when we're visible and we stand up against this, it's more of us than there are of them. And we need to start taking back our power, being cautious in doing it, but not in the spirit of fear. And I know a lot of people are afraid. Victoria, you were going to say something, sis?
Well, I was only going to build on to the great point that you raised. I know for some of us, for folks who have different health realities, going outside ain't always the way that we can engage. But there are meaningful ways that every single person can be a part of this moment, because what Pat said is so incredibly important. The more they feel like they think they've got us cornered, that's when bullies, or boxers even, right, throw more and more punches, right? We have to be out there. Whatever out there means for you is for you. Cautiously, as Pat said, but also with some joy. Find some things like that helps to release the tension. Like, part of how our ancestors have survived as much as we have survived is that even when our time, the things that we were dealing with externally, it was meant to break us, that inward joy, like that. I say it's a Negro spiritual. I don't know if it's technically classified by it, but the joy I have, the world didn't give it, the world
To me,
can't take it
can't take it.
away, right? And when
Right.
you
Right.
walk in that spirit of joy, it shatters things, it busts systems, things that are out there in the atmosphere, right? It renders them less powerful. Because when people who think that they are the bully begin to be ganged up on and
Mhm.
become
Yes.
surrounded, they
They
are no
Flip
run.
the script.
longer the
Flip the
person
script.
in charge.
That's it.
They are no longer the person wielding the fear, right? They then become the person in fear of what is surrounding them.
Mhm.
But to the points raised earlier, despite all the things that are out there intentionally designed to bust us into silos and cause us to be in our corners where we're more easily beat down, we have to figure out ways to be in true and more genuine community with each other to minimize the instances of things like what Dr. Watson Benjamin spoke of earlier, but allows us to be able to gather together in joyful ways, in cautious ways, and united in strategic ways, and ways that help to uplift and build and create the things that we need to ensure that we can continue to protect and keep ourselves, while also trying to preserve whatever the democracy is to remain and to create something new that's even bigger, better, brighter, that truly represents all of us. Because we have not yet reached the promised land of a democracy that truly had represented each and every one of us at all levels of government. We're getting the closest that we might have ever been, right? But we still have more to go, more to grow, right? More to do. We can only get there together. We can only get there together. Even if sometimes we need to take moments where there's part of the community, we got our own thing over here that we got to do for ourselves, with ourselves, by ourselves. And other times come back together on the main road to continue the journey together.
All right. Now you better preach, sister. You better preach. Okay, we have 6 minutes remaining. Let's see here. What can we put in here? How can our allies and advocates such as yourself come together to effectively show up in defense of our community in light of what's going on? How can we all just come together and say enough is enough?
I don't know. That's sad. I have tried so much throughout the years to eliminate hate within our community. Kim can tell you that. I worked with her for many years. And the hate at times that would be in our room, I say, between individuals that participated for really no reason at all. At times it saddened me, but it was a reality check.
Okay, but how can we do it?
How
How
can
can
we
we
change
change the
education?
narrative?
I'm an educator. I'm saying education. I'm saying education. I'm saying letting people learn or understand that their behaviors or their ways how they're impacting others. For those that are allegedly clergy, and I say that for a reason, to work with the different populations. because they only want to work with us LGBTQ when there's some money. So guess what? We got to do our own. We got to do our own. Like I'm doing my own now. Pat, you know it took me a long time to get here, but freedom is a must. It's my new baby. And freedom is a must is necessary because remember all the brothers and sisters that have been killed unnecessarily for freedom and being who they are.
That's right. That's
So we
right.
need to unify. That's why I keep on saying unify. My program is about unification. My program is about everything that we've talked here tonight. We have to get rid of all the isms. Everybody ain't gonna be Jay-Z and Beyonce. Okay? Okay? So we need to remember that because I don't see, I mean, it's on them, but some of the behaviors of not only our young people, but even our educators and our allies. They feel they have to compete with us. Baby, you can't compete with me because you haven't walked my walk. So how are you going to compete with me? So those are some of the things I think about. And hopefully those are some of the things that will help change the narrative, especially in New York City. Because no, New York City is a role model for many things. When New York City does something, the country and the world follows. Know that. So
Cool. We can one more. We can take one more opinion.
You mentioned in
2
defense
minutes.
of our communities, and I'm not going to say too much more on it, but NBJC has a project with a similar riff on that theme. So stay tuned to nbjc.org for more information to come. We have our Black Institute during Creating Change in January. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. The Black Institute is day long. We'll have additional content throughout the weekend. If you're able to come through, it will be a space where activists, organizers, faith leaders, folks from all different sectors will be able to come together, strategize, and build together in this moment. And I encourage folks to look for other convenings where people are getting together to do the work together, not just talk, but to strategize and do the work together.
All right. Sandra?
I think people need to identify how they are going to contribute. So for me, it is about, identifying which community-based organizations I know I want to see exist, right? And doubling down on that. And that means not just going, but showing up, maybe not spending money on coffee and donating that to a group that needs it. It doesn't have to be big. It's a lot of little pushes, a lot of
yes.
concentrated resistance at all levels that is really going to get us to where we need to be. So
All right. Kim?
I just can echo everything everyone is saying, and I want the only thing that we can come together is love. I just want folks to love on me. I just want to love on folks. I just want to do things that I know that will be done. I, everything that you guys say, I'm afraid to travel. I turn down keynote speakers. They offer me money to come to Pennsylvania, to go to Alabama, and I turned them down
Don't
because
go to Alabama.
let me tell y'all something. You can't turn the clock back around, but I know I miss community a lot. However, to back up off a community like that, I know that they are yearning to hear me. They wrote me emails telling me, okay, elder this, elder that, elder that. I haven't even get accustomed to the elder situation. I am just me. I'm a loudmouth. I'm very passionate and aggressive. Or when try to make change, and I know the changes that I have made, and I am so proud of so many individuals out there from the LGBTTGNC and Q community. I'm so proud of the trans masculine individuals who have stepped up. I am proud because so many people have come through my hands, and I am like mother, grandmother, and all these kind of things, and I am proud. I would not change anything for the world right now, but to give love and to be loved back. That's it.
Hmm.
All right, folks, it's that time, and this is a conversation that needs to be continued. Um, Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective, along with some of our community partners, we will be presenting our Visibility Through Voices conference. That'll be on October 10th and October the 11th. The conversations that we're having during this podcast are conversations that we will expound on at the conference. So
Mhm.
spread the word, join us, and join us next week as we do part 3 of Visibility Through Voices podcast. Thank you. And we thank Sage you for hosting this podcast. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that you walk away with a feeling in your heart that we had people on here tonight who care. Good night and God bless you. Go in peace, not in fear.
You got it. Thanks all.
I don't know how to make that.
Good night. Me either. Let me
Blessings, blessings.
say, amen. Thank you. Thank each and every one of you.